Namaste students. Today we are going to see the next module in the topic our environment, that is the food chain. Before going into the topic food chain, let us have a small recap of what we have studied in the last class. In the last class we have seen that the ecosystem has both biotic and abiotic factors, and when we learn about the biotic factors, you have learned that there are producers, consumers, and we have learned that there are decomposers. When we are learning about the producers, we have learned that these organisms are going to fix around 1% of the total solar radiation, and that is a solar energy in the earth, and it converts the solar energy into chemical energy. And also we have seen that that is the ultimate source of energy or food for all the organisms in the earth. And we understand that the herbivores are the first organisms to feed on these producers, and consecutively they are called as primary consumers. Then we had secondary consumer and tertiary consumer. All this we have discussed in the last module. In this module we are going to see how these organisms are going to get linked with each other for the flow of energy, and also how they depend on the other organisms for their food. Now, let us see what is chain means. Chain means, you all know, it is nothing but many links together forms a chain. Food chain means many organisms which are going to be the food for the other organisms are going to be linked. There is one beautiful sequence, that is, these organisms are eaten and being eaten. This process continues in the ecosystem. Now, let us go into this food chain. In a food chain, you can see there is a producer, there is a primary consumer, a secondary consumer, a tertiary consumer, and a top consumer. It is also called as a top predator. When you are going to see this, there is a sequence. Always first comes a producer, then comes a herbivore, and then comes a primary carnivore, then secondary carnivore, and top consumer. Like this it goes. This sequence or this link is called as food chain. In this food chain, we are going to understand that always this sequence is going to carry some meaning. These are called as producers. We have taken an aquatic ecosystem, so we are seeing an aquatic plants which is acting as a producer there. These producers are going to fix the atmospheric carbon dioxide, and using the solar energy they are going to prepare the food with the help of the water and minerals they derive from the soil. What happens here is the solar energy is converted into chemical energy. As we have discussed earlier, 1% of the total solar energy is being fixed. That energy itself is sufficient for all the organisms in the earth. So generally, if you take, these producers are going to be the source of energy. Again and again we are talking about energy. What do you mean by energy? Energy is the ultimate need for each and every living organisms to survive in this earth, because energy is required for all the life processes. All the vital life processes we need energy. So these are going to form the energy source. Now inside the water habitat, you can see this is a mosquito larva. Yes, any mosquitoes you could have seen, and all these mosquitoes will breed only in the water. So they lay the egg, and from the egg you can see this type of larva arises. This is a larva of a mosquito. It is feeding on the producer, that is the autotroph. So they are called as primary consumer. Now this larva is being eaten up by the next level of consumer, that is a secondary consumer. This is Gambusia fish. This we call it as larvivorous fish. Gambusia, it is a larvivorous fish which feeds on this mosquito larva. Gambusia, which forms a secondary consumer. And these fishes, once when they grow to a slighter extent, bigger, then they are consumed by the tertiary consumer. It can be like any aquatic birds or the bird that comes to the aquatic environment. It can be like a crane or a heron. This is a picture of a heron. This forms a tertiary consumer and they are going to get the energy. And here you can see the heron is being captured by the crocodile. It is an alligator, generally American alligator, which is capturing this prey. So this is called as a top consumer or top predator. So maximum only you can have this many links in the chain. Why? We are going to see that. This is the pyramid of food chain. The pyramid of food chain is an upright pyramid with producers at the base. Then comes the primary consumer and then the secondary consumer, followed by tertiary consumer and the quaternary consumer. Now, from this pyramid, we need to understand why the producers are being placed at the base, because their number is more. Producers, in general, their number is very high. Then, comparatively, the primary consumer numbers is less. Then comes a secondary consumer. Secondary consumer number is much more less. And then if you take tertiary and quaternary consumers, they become very, very less. And this is not only with respect to the number, it is also with respect to the energy level. The amount of energy they fix here in the producer is more. Once when you come to the primary consumer, it reduces. Then if you go to secondary consumer, subsequently to the tertiary consumer and quaternary consumer, the energy level is very less. Why? It is because we are going to just recall one concept that you could have learned in your physics, the first law of thermodynamics. It says that the energy can neither be created nor destroyed, but it can be changed from one form to the other. When this is happening, some amount of energy is lost in the form of heat. Some amount of energy is being lost in the form of respiration, and also for other vital activities of the organisms. This energy is being lost. Okay, then what is available? That is your question, right? 10% of the energy alone can be fixed in the body of these organisms. Of the total amount of energy that they capture, only 10% will be available for the next trophic level. So, producers are going to transfer only 10% to the next trophic level. Subsequently, when it goes like this to the top consumer or quaternary consumer, the energy is going to be very, very less. So because of this reason also, this pyramid is being constructed as an upright pyramid. Now, let us see a simple food chain like this. Here we are seeing the grass, then comes a grasshopper, then a bluebird, the bluebird then comes a snake and owl. And we understand that this grasshopper feeds on this grass, and then the bluebird feeds on this grasshopper, then the snake feeds on the bluebird, then the owl feeds on the snake. And all these organisms will die one particular time. At one particular time when they die, then these decomposers will decompose all these dead organisms and add to the manure for this producer. So the cycle continues. But one thing you have to watch here. The food chain that I have shown you in this previous slide has a decomposer. But actually, for any food chain, we will never show these decomposers. This is one of the vital points that you have to note. Always we will start from the producer and end with the quaternary consumer or the top predators. With that we stop. So you all will remember that in the food chain there won't be any role for the decomposers. So you can see there are different types of food chains, and how you can see it goes up to a top consumer. And this is again an aquatic ecosystem where phytoplanktons are there, which is acting as a primary producer, and subsequently you have zooplanktons, then the small fishes eaten by the large fish, and then comes a whale. So these are different types of food chains. Now the trophic level. We are seeing this trophic level as again the pyramid only, what we have seen earlier: plants, herbivores, primary predators and secondary predators. And here the plants are autotrophs. You all know very well, auto means self, troph means food. So they were able to prepare their own food material, so they are called as autotroph. Hetero means different, troph, they depend on other organisms for food. So all these are called as heterotrophs. And detritivores means they are nothing but the decomposers, and also certain organisms like earthworm, which is able to convert the complex organic substances into simple organic substance itself. They forms a detritivores. Whereas if you take with respect to decomposers, they convert the organic substance into inorganic substance. So that is a difference between detritivores and decomposers. Now let us go with the summary of this chapter. A food chain is always a linear diagram. This I want to stress. Showing how the energy moves through an ecosystem. It is a sequence of organisms eating and being eaten in an ecosystem. And when energy is transferred from one trophic level to the other, some amount of energy is lost in the form of heat. An average of only 10% of the food eaten is made available for the next level of consumers. So, food chain generally consists of only 3 or 4 steps. This is because I want to stress this point. When 10% only is going to move to the next trophic level, say for example, there is 10,000 calories. Is being fixed by the producer, then the next is going to have only 10% of this. So it becomes 1000. Then comes 100. Then comes 10. So when you draw a pyramid or when you draw a food chain, generally it will end with 4 or 5 steps. It never goes beyond that. And also energy always flows in an unidirectional way. That is from producer to top consumer. Never they will revert back. This is one of the very important concept you have to understand. In the food chain, always the energy will move only from the producers to consumers, top consumer. It is a sequence of event. That is what we have given here. Energy flow is always unidirectional and it does not revert back. Now, let us go for an assignment. Construct a food chain using the following organisms. I hope you all will do this. I will give you just 30 seconds. Easily you can do. In 10 seconds you will finish, but still I am giving you 20 seconds or 30 seconds. You can finish this. A frog, a grasshopper, snake, grass and eagle. Yes. Can you assume what type of ecosystem it is? Yes. Probably it is a grassland ecosystem. Good. So after a few minutes we will see the answer. Now identify the correct sequence of energy flow in an ecosystem from producer to consumer. Just now I have explained you, always the energy will move from the producer to the top consumer. And when these energy flows, we understand that more amount of energy will be seen only in the producer. With this clue, I want you to solve this, which is a correct flow of energy. Very particularly from producer to consumer. Yes? Good. Now let us see the answer. This is the right answer. Yes? If you have written a correct answer, you can applaud yourself. If not, no problem, you have learned a concept. By making mistakes, we learn. Isn't it or not? So let this be a good exercise for you. When you are coming for the next module, be more alert and we learn more. Thank you. Namaste.